Alright, so the question for the discussion forum this week was, in what ways did Skinner's three-term contingency, SRS, expand the scope of behavioral analysis beyond Watson's SR model, and why was that shift important for the development of ABA? So first we're going to look at Watson's model, and then Skinner's, and I'll tie it all together at the end. So what was Watson's stimulus response model? Pretty much, Watson had this idea, and they were observing the relationship between the stimulus and a response that stimulus elicits. So, basically, he thought that controlling the stimulus before a behavior would lead to these certain behaviors, and he would be able to predict and control behavior through that lens. And like we discussed in class, he had that idea of basically if he got a bunch of infants, he would be able to shape the environment in such a way that he could control what they turned out to be, like a lawyer, a doctor, that type of thing, and he could make them the best thing in their field, right? But his model didn't really have a lot of evidence. It wasn't tested enough times to really show that that was an accurate way to change behavior. And then Skinner's three-term contingency, it was the antecedent, behavior, and the consequence model. And basically he observed that behavior is changed more by the consequence that comes after the behavior than by the stimulus given before. And so his model was tested quite a bit during that time period, and it showed consistent results that the consequence afterward would start to change the behavior after enough times of doing it. And so I'm just going to read the question again, sorry. In what ways did Skinner's three-term contingency expand the scope of behavioral analysis beyond Watson's SR model, and why was this shift important for the development of ABA? Okay, so it expanded the scope of behavioral analysis, like I've already mentioned, just by giving a bit more of an evidence-based practice to follow. I would say his Skinner's SRS model gave more evidence and a more consistent change in behavior than Watson's. And why was this shift important for the development of ABA? I think it probably gave ABA a bit more credibility because it showed more consistent results of behavior actually being changed by the work that they were doing. And that was dependent on the consequences, as mentioned. And it seems pretty obvious that model is kind of used pretty much all the time in ABA. We've been practicing it in class, I think, because of this. So first the prompt is given, and then the behavior is emitted, and afterward the reinforcement happens, and it really is dependent on that reinforcement or that consequence after that determines whether or not the behavior becomes changed over time. And yeah, I would say that's pretty much how the development of ABA has changed. It's given more of a consistent change in behavior, and it's also just given more credibility to that happening.